My name is Lisa Jander. We're in Lake Orion, Michigan, which is, the sign out front says we're living as a vacation. So that's why we live here. Just a little bit north of Pontiac and about 40 minutes from Detroit, so it's not too far. Dater's Ed was an accident. I never meant to write a book. My son is 19 now, my daughter's 16, and at the time my son was 15. He was going through the driver's ed manual and driver's ed, and we were sitting at the dining room table one day and he said, "Oh, I'm so excited that I get to get my driver's license so I can date." And I said, "Wait a minute, how does that relate to dating?" And he said, "Well, everybody knows, you get to date when you have your driver's license." So we had this conversation and I took the driver's ed manual and I changed all the words driver to the word dater, and this great analogy popped off the pages. I mean, things like dating under the influence and boundary lines and emergencies and hazards. I really didn't realize how much I was actually doing when they were really young. For instance, I said to him, when he was little, I said, this is like someday you're going to have a girlfriend who's going to be maybe younger, maybe the same age, but you should be practicing on your sister on how to treat a girl. So to this day, he opens the car door for her and does all those kinds of things, and he's quite a gentleman. I've had a lot of adults and a lot of girls say that, he's such a gentleman. And I told somebody earlier today that I had 59,632 words to say and nobody would sit still long enough to listen, so I wrote a book. The book is for parents, but it's really my passion. I'm a certified life coach, I'm a speaker, but my passion is to connect parents in a new way to their teens, because I think a lot of parents give up when they're teenagers. I think they're exhausted. I think they look at their kids and they think they're all grown up and put together, and in reality they're not. They really need a lot of help. Again, you look at these kids and you say, gosh, you're so grown up. They look so put together. They look like they've got it all going on, and they do, but their brains are not fully developed till they're 25 years old. I mean, that's a fact. So if you think about that and you think, oh, how are they going to be making these really logical decisions? Because most of what they think of is from the amygdala, just that emotion center. And so the decisions are based on emotion, and that's a very dangerous place to be when you're thinking you're in love. You can see my sweatshirt. My nickname is Mama J. We have by our kitchen, we have a long, skinny hallway, and when we moved into this house, it was big and dark and scary, so my daughter was 6, and we'd sit in the hallway because it was the only place without windows, and we'd eat apples or play cards or whatever. And as time went on, her friends would come over and they would say, I want hall time. So it became this ritual of when you come over, you have to have what they call hall time, and then you have to have what they call a Mama J moment. So it's a place in our house that if my daughter says to me, or my son, or whoever says, I need hall time, I know that this is not about, can I borrow the car, or I need new shoes, or anything like that. It's serious. So it just kind of started like that, and then these kids started staying. And then they're talking about things that they don't seem to have anybody they can talk to about. And it's grown to a point where it's about 163 kids now of watching in the community, and getting text messages and Facebook and chat and IM and all the technology, and it's the way they talk, and I love it. I just love it. Started a couple years ago with these girls, now all 16 years old. Started at 16 and 17, they were all 14 when they started. So it's been an interesting evolution of watching their lives and watching how they've gone from, all wanting, to have boyfriends and to be in love, and then talking really about what that looks like and what does that mean and where's that coming from and what is your vision of love and how do you define that, and just really being able to slow that process down and back them off of that and talk about really the repercussions and what happens to your heart and to your soul when you give yourself away, not just emotionally but physically and all of those things, and how you can't really get that back, and how it will change the course of your life. Poor 12 girls that come to my house, they know there's a lot of thought now that goes into it. So, and I think they're better for it. They're happy that they know now, and especially even with each other, that healthy relationships do need to be intentional, and you have to put effort in. I love hearing what they have on their minds. I love the teen brain because it's right on that cusp between the fully developed, logical, methodical, problem-solving, risk management kind of prefrontal cortex versus the amygdala, which is all the emotion center, and they're kind of right between there. So they're pretty successful at bouncing back and forth, so they're still fresh and they have great ideas. They're not as rigid as some adults can be, but they also tend to live more from an emotional perspective, and that can be very dangerous. My whole goal, and what I quote, is that I try to get kids to date defensively, navigate safely, and steer clear of unhealthy relationships. Everything they do is based on relationships. Their siblings, their mother and father, their teachers, their potential employer, all of that are relational skills that unless you have those skills, you're eventually going to really have a rough time in life. When my daughter was little, we had a little poem that we used to say. And now it's kind of funny because the girls all say it now too, which is cute, but it's, "Do not touch what my bathing suit covers. Have respect for me and for others." So we drew the lines, the boundary lines were her bathing suit lines. Those were her tan lines. There are a lot of kids out there that have never had sex, but that doesn't mean they've not been involved in sexual activity. So it's giving them something that in the moment, in the emotional moment, they can grab onto and say, no, that's my boundary. I'm 51 years old, and this passion has been building in me for quite some time, and it would have been very, very easy to just dismiss it and say, you know what, I've got a full life, I've got a house I have to take care of, I'm married, I've got my 2 kids, I'm trying to get them off, I'm going to be an empty nester, I've put in my time. There's so many great excuses, and I guess this is my niche, and there are so many other niches out there that are still unfilled, and I would hope that people, when they see what you've done, and that you're really interviewing people that really care about their communities, and I would venture to say that every single person you talk to, there's going to be a relational component in there, because that's what this is all about. And it's been the greatest year because for me, this is so much more valuable than anything I've ever done. I guess that's the encouragement for me, is that, sometimes I'm exhausted, sometimes I don't have time, I'm not in the mood or whatever it is, but the beauty for me is that if I just get one set of parents to see their teenager differently and reconnect and talk to them in a different way, that's all worth it, all of it, because these kids need us more than ever when they're teenagers.